What's good, everybody? I'm Zach Hayes, and welcome to Hype DC presents the Weekly Drop Live. Thanks for coming down, and big thanks to Hype DC for helping us cook this up and hosting us tonight. I'd like to introduce to the stage Steve Duck, the editor of the Weekly Drop, and the icon himself, Bobbito Garcia.
All right, so we're here obviously tonight at Hype DC. We're going to be talking about sneakers, clearly, but also we'll be touching on hip hop because we've got the great Bobbito Garcia here and a little bit of basketball as we already have. But let's just kick right off, get into the sneakers thing. Clearly, when we're talking to Bobbito, we're going to be talking about like those classic sneakers from the streets of New York, as you are. I want to talk about three sneakers: the Puma Suede, the Adidas Superstar, and the Nike Air Force One. Is these are sneakers that no matter where you are in the world, whatever time of year it is, you can always buy a pair. They're always going to be on the shelf. But what are your specific memories of those particular shoes that you can sort of share with us, or even like the origins of those that you can remember?
Oh, wow. I mean...
I know it's a lot, right?
Yeah, each has a heavy history. The Puma Suede and the Puma Clyde really hit New York in the early 70s. And it was a transformative shoe in that there was a game back in the 60s where it was called Stepsies. You bought a new pair of Pro Keds, you bought a new pair of Chuck Taylors. First day on the block, everyone was like, you got new sneakers, Stepsies. And they just stomp on your shit. And you just have to be like, dang, my new sneakers are fucked up now. It's like, Stepsies. Puma stopped all that. Once people bought suede and paid $25 in 1972 for a pair of sneakers, it was like, I'm gonna punch you in your face if you step on my shit. And not only that, it was like a casual lifestyle revolutionary shoe, because I mean, cats in the 60s and 50s even, like, they surely wore Chuck Taylors to the movies and, you know, on dates and stuff. But the Puma Clyde was like, you could, like, practically wear it to a wedding, you know? It was just a gorgeous shoe. And so I think it put a light bulb in a lot of people's heads that there was a new approach and a new ideology towards having a pair of sneakers. And it went so far to these idiosyncratic approaches, like, you know, cats would have a toothbrush on their ear, you know, at school in 1980 when I was at Brooklyn Tech, and, you know, somebody like stepped on your sneakers by accident, or you eating a slice of pizza and the oil dripped off, and it's, you know, you like got the toothbrush out. I didn't do that, but you know, and you cleaned your sneakers immediately. So it was, in many ways, a turning point for the culture. The shell toe, the Superstar, as many people call it, was also a turning point in that it was the first low-cut leather basketball shoe that really took off in the streets. And uptown in Harlem, there was a playground legend by the name of Joe Hammond, a.k.a. the Destroyer. His single-game scoring record stood all the way up until about 3 years ago. Kevin Durant, the leading scorer in the NBA, multiple seasons, went up to the Ruckers, scored 66. It was on ESPN Top 10. He didn't even break Joe Hammond's record. That's how incredible Joe Hammond was, and he did that without a three-point line back in the 70s. Anyway, Joe Hammond loved the Superstar, and because he was like Elvis Presley, you know, to cats uptown, like, that shoe became another transformative shoe. You know, eventually the drug dealers started wearing it and the hip-hop heads started wearing it, but, you know, they all took their cue. Similar to the Puma Clyde, too. The Puma Clyde, you know, was a basketball player's shoe at first, and then because it was cool in the basketball courts, then the hip-hop heads started wearing it. So, I mean, those two are like kind of, you know, by the early 80s, they're the archetype of what a hip hop head would wear. I didn't wear them though. I was always a kid. I was always a kid that was, everyone's wearing those two shoes. Well, we want to wear this brand that no one knows about, or we want to wear this model that no one knows about, or we want to wear this color that no one knows about. So we were like the progressives, and we were a small community relative to the greater scheme of people who were wearing sneakers and really excited about it in the 70s and 80s. And one of those shoes that was transformative for us, that when everyone was wearing Puma Clydes and shell toes, the Air Force One came out. And we were wearing those to play ball because, holy shit. And we didn't, you know, when they came out, we didn't really know for sure that there was air inside. We didn't know if it was like a gimmick because there was no Viz Air back then, right? So you just had to take Nike's word. The ad where you see the bubble on the inside, we didn't see that ad. Like, ads were like invisible back then. It's not like today where like ads come out and, you know, you follow and you see it every, it's like, I didn't see that ad till like 20 years later probably. So we just took the word, but you know, we were outdoor. I was an outdoor ball player. I was playing on concrete, you know, hours upon hours every single day. So the Air Force One, it really made a difference in my life. Not just like, oh God, I'm happy to have these sneakers and yay. Like, no, like that shit like drastically changed my life. My knees felt better after playing. I improved as a ball player. And the shoe wasn't really sexy at first. It took a little while to become sexy.
It's still sexy now though.
It's very sexy now. You know, by 86, the shoes were very, very sexy. But, you know, we had, it was almost like the mentality had to catch up to the design. When I first saw the Air Force Ones, I thought they were hiking shoes, literally.
Because of the midsole? Because it was like quite chunky?
The leather was thicker than most of the leather that was available back then. The midsole was a lot thicker, so it just looked more boxier. But it was sleek. But you got to remember the era. Like, I'm coming out of wearing top 10s, Adidas top 10s with a very, you know, small midsole. Anyway, so I mean, there's three shoes that are tremendous, and I've been fortunate to collab with each of them.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
In 2005, I did the 35th anniversary Superstar. In 2007, I did the 25th anniversary Air Force One. I did 7 actually, 7 different colors. You guys call it colorways.
That's right. That's right. We call it colorways. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're young.
Thank you so much.
I remember the first time I heard colorways, I used to consult Nike back in the 90s, and I was in an office and somebody said, colorways, and I was like, oh. It's always interesting to me that your generation picked up the word because it's such an industry word, and like to us, we were from the hood. We never wanted to sound like corporate America. So it was always interesting phenomenon to me that like the young kids were like, colorways. It was like, you sound like a corporate asshole right now. Don't you realize what you're saying? You're like, no, I'm cool. Colorways. Like, shut up. Sorry. Does that sound like an old grumpy dude right now? Yeah. Anyway, so that's my little stuff. Oh, and I did the Puma Clyde in 2016. I was very happy to do those. Ooh, those are the stash? Sweet. You got the stash Air Force Ones. Yeah, in 2007, at the 25th anniversary party for the celebration of Air Force One, the stash collab came in as the #1 collab of all time. Those are the 2007 ones, yeah, cool. Pretty amazing.
Shout out Matt Williams in the Stash Air Force Ones from '07. All right, so getting back to what we're talking about the Air Force Ones and the Pumas and so forth. And I'm thinking about those shoes, right? As I said, no matter where you are, you can always just cop a pair off the shelf because they're just eternally evergreen, popular sneakers. But they're all sneakers that were designed between the 60s and 80s. Why do you think that is? Why is that the glory period of sneaker design?
It's a great question. it's the formative years, right? I authored a book. How many people here own Where'd You Get Those? New York City Sneaker Culture, 1960 to 1987. Oh, cool, perfect. You're the man. All right.
Yeah, first edition. Very good.
All right, cool. And in this time period, it's the foundation and the burgeoning years for what becomes, the modern era of sneaker culture. And I think the models and the silhouettes that came out in that era, it's like we're endeared to them because they're what started it. It would be similar to, thinking about Kool Herc and Rocksteady and Run DMC and like all the sort of groups and organizations and crews and DJs that created this hip hop movement. It's like they're forever dear to our hearts. We wouldn't be here without them, right? So I think that's one part of it. But I think the other part is that you got to understand that some of those shoes were designed prior to computers. And so there's a human aspect in them. There is a imperfection to them. And there are a ton of memories attached, right? So when you put on a pair of shell toes or Puma Clydes, you can have an immediate sort of linear experience to, all these great moments in hip hop, right? And you put on the Air Force One, and you can have all these moments with hip hop as well as basketball, if you know about that. But I mean, look, bottom line, they're sleek and they're simple. And like when the Roshis became popular, I wasn't surprised. I was like, yo, they're sleek and they're simple. It's like those are two ingredients to any great design. And usually the sleek and simple sustains its interest post its release.
Right. It's funny though, because the Roshi kind of played itself out for whatever reason, and
it did because it had a lot of sales. But I bet you in 10 years, if they pull them back in 10 years, they put them back out. People be like, oh shit, the Roshis,
Yeah, you're
or
right.
the Stan Smiths right there. That I'm just looking at, like super sleek, super simple, functional. They're gonna last, So.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the Roshis. Like, do you think that there are current sneakers that have come out in the last sort of 5, 10, maybe even 20 years that you think will be like those Rod Lavers and Air Forces and so on, Stan Smiths that we'll always see?
Absolutely. Time will tell. Right. We can't always predict the future. And the tide of sneaker culture has changed so drastically. We are in the midst of an era where there's a lot of turnover, a lot of choices, which is a beautiful thing. I always get this question, well, what do you think of the current, era of, this is the best shit ever. You could buy a pair of sneakers that come out of New York and not have to travel 32 hours and, and go through passport control in Sydney. That's a good thing, Like I had an advantage in the 90s because I was working for Def Jam, started traveling, started DJing, so I was coming back to New York with shit that you just could not get in New York. And people were like, yo, where'd you get those? Oh, shit. So my rep just kind of like amplified. Clark Kent was selling some things. He was DJing. He was in the game. Like, he was up and down the seaboard, eastern seaboard, coming back to New York. Like, we had an advantage because we traveled. So anyway, we're in a great era now. And there's a lot of choices for colors, for models, for reissues. So it's interesting where we step forward.
Right. So I obviously did a little research prior to this, being that it's my job. One interview I read was quite striking because you said in the interview you only actually own 3 pairs of sneakers now, which I was shocked. Is that still the case? 3 pairs?
I have about 20 right now. 25.
So when you did cut it down to 3, though, what were the 3 that you kept?
I don't even remember. I mean, who is coming to the screening on Sunday for my film Rock Rubber 45s? Only one person, 2. Okay. It's, I don't know.
It's at Section 8 on Sunday night, guys.
No. Globe Alley. Still tickets available. Okay. So there's I directed an autobiographical documentary titled Rock Rubber 45s. The Australian premiere is this Sunday. I'll be there to do a Q&A afterwards. In the narrative, I discuss my advocacy for sneaker donating. And I've worked with a number of nonprofits dating back to 2003. And there's a really beautiful story about, because people always ask me, well, you know, what's your favorite pair of all time? And I'm not going to give that away. You have to watch the film. It's also available on Vimeo and iTunes and Amazon. You can download it, stream it, rent it if you just want to, you know, spend a little bit of money. But so in process of getting into donating and working with multiple nonprofits and all that, it just became part of my culture to, you know, do an event, get a free pair of sneakers, appreciate that. All right, cool, they're great, they're whack. Either way, you know, keep them moving. And so that dried out what I had. But then I also realized, so I was like only rotating like 3 pairs of sneakers. I think I might have been misquoted in that article. I was only rotating 3 pairs of sneakers. Right.
So you had more in storage or whatever, but there was just kind of 3 that were
regularly being worn. Because I also got to the point where I don't know, like I didn't have anything to prove to anybody anymore, you know. And
I know the feeling.
Part of being in this is like the competition and the joy of like wearing something that no one else has, and you know, and being ahead of the race, and you know, and I just got to a point where, especially when I had a child and he was like stepping on my shit, you know, like vomiting on my sneakers, and you know, we go on the playground, he's like stomp, it was like stepsies all over again, like Dad, you know, so that kind of stopped wearing fresh sneakers, but ultimately, you know, I care about being comfortable, and that's first and foremost. Like if I have a pair of sneakers on, it's like not the one of ones, you know, it's fine. It's fine.
So one of the charities was Hoops for Hope.
Yes.
And there's presumably others. So do you want to just talk about what that does? Because look, if you're like me, you probably have several boxes and you're like, well, I can't sell these, right? Because no one's going to pay for like my 2012 Jordan 4s, right? But I don't need these anymore. So where can you take them, right?
So yeah, I mean, there's a number of nonprofits. Hoops for Hope is one. They're based in Zimbabwe and South Africa. They use sneakers as a draw to get kids to come to their basketball clinic. And then there, they teach them about life skills, HIV prevention. Really effective program, super effective. There's Samaritan's Feet, there's Soul for Souls, there's Healing Souls. There's about 4 nonprofits that I regularly donate to that, like Hurricane Katrina, you know, they're down in New Orleans, like giving out like boxes and boxes of sneakers at the Superdome. You know, Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, like they're down there like giving out sneakers to people, you know, who lost their clothes. I mean, this is not about like, you know, oh, I want to be fresh. This is about like, yo, like people are out in the sun with no shoes. You know, they hit Latin America, developing areas. And so there was another program that Nike had called Regrind, where they would take old, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to take old shoes. They would have drop-offs at Nike Town in Manhattan, and they would chop up old shoes and regrind them and use them to make basketball and tennis courts in developing areas in the U.S., which is like brilliant, super like eco-friendly, green. I hope that they're still doing that program. So yeah, I mean, there are shoes that you're probably sitting on that could be super functional for someone in the world that would like really change their lives. And there's a moment in my film, Rock Over 45s, where it's a tearjerker, actually. So I encourage all of you to check the film out at some point that revolves around donating a shoe.
So those Roshis that you have, they're not going to be cool for another 10 years, maybe. So yeah, just donate them and help someone out that's in need. So I just want to switch gears because I wanted to talk about hip hop with you, obviously, because that's what a lot of people would find you synonymous with. One thing that's really interesting to me about hip hop is that, like, and it really depends on the year you were born, but what year you think is the best year for hip hop, right? Can anyone here tell me what their best year is for hip hop? Henry? 94? The 90s in general, okay, right. I would say 96, because it gave us All Eyes on Me. But that's just me. But I've read that that was just something that I saw for yourself. You said 93, 94 was really the kind of the apex.
Well, the golden era for rap music for me is actually like 86 to 89. So it's funny because like me and Stretch, for those who know, I did a radio show for 8 years. There's a film on Netflix titled Stretch and Bobbito Radio that changed lives. Thank you. And, we provided a platform for all these kids who were unsigned at the time, teenagers, who wound up completely just changing the music industry. Jay-Z, Nas, Biggie, Wu-Tang. There's a new Wu-Tang doc on Showtime called Of Mics and Men. And, Eminem, Big L, Company Flow, on and on, Fugees, Cypress, Fat Joe, Big Pun, Mobb Deep. I mean, I can go on and on and on. All these artists, like, the first time they were ever publicly heard live was on our show. And it's amazing to think that I was a part of that with my boy, Stretch. Stretch would say the same, too. Like, that's not our golden era. Like 86 to 89 for rap was phenomenal. And if I'm gonna say hip hop, like not just rap, but hip hop, it even goes back further. My golden era for hip hop is probably 77 to 81. When I'm experiencing graffiti for the first time and I'm experiencing b-boying for the first time and I'm hearing beats and and everything is fresh and there's nothing commercial about it. It's just all about, these like unforgettable experiences, That's my golden era, So it's interesting when I hear people like, nah, man, 95 is the golden era. And I'm like, no, it's not. You're just young. But, I appreciate it. I mean, it's all your point of reference. So I'm happy that me and Stretch were around the 90s and got to have a hand in creating this sort of, tornado that still is twirling today around the world and has global impact.
So something that Stretch and Bob, your show, was really synonymous with was, of course, Big L.
Yep, rest in peace.
Big L was someone who appeared on your show a few times, had a very famous cipher with Jay-Z, and that was really what carved out Big L's name as someone who had these phenomenal punchlines, great flows, etc., great personality on the mic. What always struck me as really interesting about Big L was that he's really, really popular in Australia for some reason. Every rap fan in Australia, now I don't know, this might be globally, but every rap fan in Australia loves Big L. And I was hoping that you could maybe share some insight or some stories about Big L that maybe people weren't aware of.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with the Big L Jay-Z freestyle. If you saw my film, Stretch and Bobbito Radio that changed lives, I mean, there's a whole scene where, we even get Jay-Z talking about that moment. And it's interesting because the Big L Jay-Z freestyle is like, I don't know where it's at in terms of views on YouTube or whatever, but it's essentially like the most listened to and exalted live moment in rap history. Arguably.
I couldn't think of anything that would go ahead of it.
I would go so far to say that the Big L Jay-Z freestyle is more listened and more renowned than any of his songs.
I would agree, yeah.
So it's interesting, right? It's like we're talking about an artist that's more known for his live moment on Me and Stretch's radio show than any of his singles or music videos. That's powerful. It's like really powerful. You know, if we think about any of the big name artists in the last 20 years, you're more than likely gonna be like, oh man, I remember when the video came out, or, you know, I remember when I heard the song, and, you know, but this is just a moment that had no one recorded it, just would not be in existence, right? So it really speaks to the power of inaccessibility. Because one of the reasons why it's so powerful is that if you missed it in '95, you missed it, you know, and it wasn't until Napster and all these other like platforms came along that people started posting our shows and educating, like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I'm saying it in Spanish. How do you say it in English? Lin-Manuel. Y'all know who Lin-Manuel is, right? How do you... Miranda.
Well, in
Miranda.
Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda, yeah.
Yeah, Miranda, right?
Miranda. On the
You know,
Miranda.
I mean, he heard the Big L Jay-Z freestyle, you know, like 7 years after the fact. You know, it's like there's a lot of people who are like in their teens now who, I used to mentor kids in Harlem when I lived there, and they'd be like doing the Big L Jay-Z freestyle by heart, and I'd be like, you know, that was on Me and Stretch's show, and they're like, nah, Bob, nah, and I'm like, go back and listen to it tonight, talk to me tomorrow, and they were like, yo, I heard you saying, ooh, you know, and like laughing and everything. Like, yo, I see you brought your man up, and it's, you know, it's like all these like, it's like, oh shit, a lot of people like didn't even know that was us. The crazy thing is that wasn't Big L's best freestyle on our show. That's the craziest shit to Me and Stretch. L came up like 5 times, and he was one of the artists that just had, we have 10 minutes left? Are you serious? That's crazy.
Time flies when you're talking to me.
All right, so I'll bring it down. Anyway, Big L came up 5 times. One of the other times, he brought up 8 of his friends. It was a crew called Children of the Corn, and there were 2 MCs in the group. One was Murder Mace, and the other one was Killer Cam. Killer Cam became Cameron. Murder Mace became Mace, unfortunately. He was a lot better when he was talking about murder. As crazy as that sounds. Just technically, he was more fierce on the mic. But yeah, L, you know, and L was responsible for bringing Jay-Z up to our show too. Like, he was just, you know, had he still been alive, he would have transitioned to being like a Jay-Z figure who would have like led a record label and been an incredible A&R. He was like super supreme, like hip hop student. You know, he loved Nas. Very quiet kid. You know, played ball with him one day up in Harlem. You know,
What was his game like?
I mean, you know, we just shot around. You know, I didn't cross him up or anything like that. Took a light on him. But yeah, he's just, you know, sweet soul. You know, it was heartbreaking when we heard that he got shot.
You mentioned Nas though, and a big part of the documentary that Bob's talking about is when Nas actually mentions when he was writing Illmatic, he was really writing to the beats that you guys were playing on your show. So you really had quite a direct influence in the way that what's considered to be the greatest rap album of all time ended up sounding.
Yep. That's a one-word answer. I almost fell off my seat when we were interviewing Nas. We did it in L.A. And it took 18 months to get him, Busta Rhymes, Jay-Z, and Eminem in our film, Stretch and Bobbito, Ready to Change Lives. Fat Joe, it took 3 days. Kool Keith, it took 1 week. Nas, it took 18 months. It was busy people, We were happy that we were able to get him on camera. Film was dope without him. The film became legendary with him. And when he said that, I never knew that. I hadn't seen Nas since 1993 until we interviewed him on camera.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was crazy. Like I saw him as a kid prior to, he came up to our show 4 months before Illmatic dropped, and then I just never crossed paths with him again. I was on a flight with him once. He was sitting in first class, and I was in economy, and this is after he had put out a couple of clunkers, and I wasn't sure, like he was just in his zone. I didn't want to bother him, so I didn't say what's up. Yeah, and it was nothing but love, man. And when he said that, I literally fell out my seat. I couldn't. Illmatic for me is the best album in rap ever, period. Hands down, no competition, nothing. Sorry.
Okay.
Actually, fuck that. I'm not sorry. It's just an incredible album.
I want to know how the crowd feels about that. Is Illmatic the GOAT for you guys? All right. Well, you got Bob to thank, so make sure you do it after the show. You literally called that...
And Stretch.
Okay, sorry. Well, they can't say thanks to Stretch, so... But yeah, shout out Stretch. The documentary is called Radio That Changed Lives. And when you look back on that, you launched careers on the show, but you also helped people who were serving in the military and people that were serving in prison and that sort of thing. What do you think was the most gratifying part of your time doing the show?
I think it's all of it. Stretch and I, we're still learning today how impactful that show was. We had a podcast on npr.org called What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito. And in the second season, we interviewed Jonah Hill, who's, who he is, actor, kind of famous, kind of incredible. In his film, mid-90s, in the opening scene, the lead character goes into his big brother's bedroom and looks at a rack of cassettes. And it's like 20 Stretch and Bobbito cassettes. And they're authentic Stretch and Bobbito cassettes. It's not like the art department was like, let's make Stretch and Bobbito cassettes. Like, they were from a collector in California. And Jonah didn't grow up in New York. He grew up in LA, and he comes into the room and he's bowing down to us. It's the most bizarre shit. It's this dude's got I don't know, 5 million followers on Twitter and shit. He only follows 3 people, and one of them is our handle. It's crazy, and it's so, still to this day, I'm sure after this is done and I walk out to the crowd, somebody's going to be like, yo, actually, no, there was a dude in the back. You, right? Yeah. He was like, yo, I got stretched. He came to my shop, my store, Footwork, in the 90s. I had the world's first sneaker boutique. Don't get it twisted. I talk about that in the film. Actually, Jeff Staple, who was your first guest, talks about it in the film too. And it's just crazy how you impact people, and then you may not cross paths with them for 20, 25 years. And this is my first time in Australia, people. This is my first time ever talking to a crowd. Oh, she's yawning. I'm losing her. Okay. Back to you. I just lost her.
All right. Well, you mentioned Bobbito's Footwork, with the first sneaker boutique. We've talked about your many sneaker collabs, your radio show. We haven't really even spoken about your time as an A&R at Def Jam, as the guy who started Fondlem Records, which is where MF Doom came from. There are so many different things that you've done.
My knees hurt. I'm listening.
Good.
It looks like I peed on myself.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's the water bottle. It's condensating. Look at that. Don't look at my crotch. I'm sorry.
Don't encourage people.
Yeah, sorry. That was really awkward. I'm so sorry.
So you've you've done so much in so many different fields. I want to know why that is. Is that like the New York like hustler mentality that's just ingrained in you, or is there something else that's driving you, do you think?
How much time do we have? Fuck, man, 5 minutes? You're the worst, dude. You're like, everybody in here is so happy. You're like the bearer of bad news. It's like, 5 minutes. Shit. All right, so I started yes, I've done a lot of things. I started directing films in 2010. Well, I started making films in 2010. I didn't really have the confidence to say I was a director until probably the third one, the current one, Rock Rubber 45s. But in my autobiographical documentary, it was my vision to share my narrative, both delicate and sensitive moments, as well as my career path, to show people, because I always get that question, like, oh, well, if you had to choose between sneakers and basketball and hip hop, which one would you choose? And I'm like, actually, I don't have to choose. I've been able to rock all three. And Rock Rubber 45s is like, it's the title of a film, but it's also like a mentality. It's also like a movement in my mind. It's like rock is for the basketball, rubber's for the sneakers, 45s is for the music. And, you know, yes, I grew up in New York, and yes, our pace is a little bit faster than other cities, and yes, it's the birthplace of hip hop, and yes, it's the mecca for playground basketball outdoors, and it's the, you know, media capital of the world, and, you know, so I'm part and parcel to all these things and all these influences, and the fact that I've been able to travel the world and impact multiple movements, not just one, but multiple, speaks to my work ethic, my vision, but also I'm an opportunity grabber, you know? And I speak about this in the film towards the end where, you know, I just have constantly been a person who seeks to fill voids. Stretch and I, we recorded an album 2 weeks ago. It'll be coming out in September with a live band. Now, every artist says, oh, yeah, you know, I'm doing some different shit. But, like, I mean, dead ass, like, I'm a music aficionado. I'm kind of a historian. Like, I've never heard the album anything like what we just created. I firmly believe that. And time will tell if the audience receives it, or it may go over the audience's head. But I feel like our album is gonna push a boundary in music and open up a lot of doors for people to rethink and reconsider and reimagine how to produce as well as to dance and to play the genres that we love, you know, Latin, Afro, funk, soul, breaks, jazz, soul, R&B, you know, all of it, like all of it. I just like challenges, you know, and I'm not someone who is sedentary and stuck. Like, I just keep on moving forward, progressing, taking risks, calculated ones. And I look back, when I did my film, Rock Rubber 45s, and watched it for the first time, I was like, oh, shit, okay. Like, I don't even think I realized how much I've done or am doing, but it's just because life moves on. You know, I'm 52. You know, in another 10 years, I'll look back and be like, oh, shit, I went to Melbourne.
It won't take 10 years. You'll be on the plane like, wow, that was wild. Okay, last question. You did mention that you did not cross up Big L, but I want to know if you have crossed up any famous rappers that we would like to hear about.
That's funny. I've never been asked that. I guess. Yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah, hell yeah. I have a list that I keep of people I've actually made fall. It doesn't happen as much anymore because I'm in my 50s, but yeah, I've made a couple people fall in my life.
How many names on the list?
Huh?
How many names are on the list? Of
I think I got up to 28. It was interesting. Like, and I have like where it happened, who it was. It's like a hit list, you know? Yeah. No, but no MCs are on it. I don't call them rappers. That's like for you young. It's like colorways, you know. It's like rappers, you know. It's like, I'm a rapper. Like when someone's like, I'm a rapper, like I automatically like, you're whack. Automatically told me you're whack. Somebody comes up and be like, yo, I'm an MC. I'm like, a word? More than likely, he or she might be dope. But yeah, you know, I've had a lot of fun playing in celebrity games and stuff. Oh, you know what? I didn't cross them up, but me and Jadakiss had a nice shootout. That was the last celebrity game I played, and after that, I kind of retired from playing celebrity games. But that was at Baruch College, and it was for Hard to Guard. And Jadakiss came down, and he hit his first 2 threes, and the crowd was like, ah! And then I came down, and I hit 2 threes like 5 feet behind the NBA three-point line, and people were like, oh! So, you know, but he wasn't guarding me, I wasn't guarding him, but it was just kind of like, there was a lot of joy in the crowd. It was like seeing, Jadakiss, super cool dude, started his organic juice store called Juices for Life. Real beautiful dude, man, mad cool. Wish I could hang out with him more often. And Fat Joe, actually, I might have crossed him up pretty bad. But that's like, you know, it's not saying much. Like, nah, Joe's my man. But he's not a ball player, you know. He's not a ball player. Me and Pete Nice from third base used to play when we were younger. I never crossed him up, but he was a tough player. So X could play too. Ali Mo from Brand Nubians, he was their DJ. Am I dating myself? Do you guys know who Brand Nubians are? Yeah.
Who here remembers Sadat X?
Oh, cool.
Shit,
Yeah.
look at this.
Yeah, he played D1. Great player. Left-handed, played at Hunter College. Was coaching kids for many years afterwards. Who else? Prince? Nah, I never played against Prince. Yeah, that would have been great. I met him though. Rosario Dawson and I were like super tight back in the. I mean, we're still tight, but we don't get to see each other as often anymore. But she was like, "Yo, P's in town." I was like, "Who's P?" She was like, "Duh." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." She was like, "Yeah, I might bring him by your gig tonight at Joe's Pub." I was like, "Word, cool." So she brings him down, and I'm playing. I'm in my moment, man. I was playing some joints. It was dope. I was like, "Word, Prince is here. He's hearing me and shit." So I'm like, "Oh, I gotta say what's up to my sister, you know, Rosario." So I walk up to the booth, and like I didn't see dude, but there was like a 6'8" security guard that just put out the hand of God, like, "Hey, yo," he was like, "Where are you going? You rang." It's like, nah. I'm saying what's up to Rosario. And so Rosario turned around. I was like, nah, that's family. He's like, oh, okay. And then I met Prince and shit. His little hand was I would have crossed him. I would have killed him.
All right, no doubt. Thank you very much.
Rest in peace to Prince.
Rest in peace to Prince.
Yeah,
All
no
right.
disrespect. You know.
Let's give it up for Bobbito Garcia. Woo, 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 woo.